Yeah, it's good to hear that many of you already have a little bit of a, well, have had contact with the practice already, or maybe all of you, I think. Has anyone never done a feeding your demons? Never tried it? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, a few. Good. It's fine. And what we will do today is that I will talk about it first. I will give you some background and I will give you some information about this practice. Yeah. And then I will lead you through a work. So as a group, it really can work quite well online, and or it does. I've done it several times. So you can all try it out today also. I seem to be having a little bit of technical problems because my screen freezes every now and then. You also notice, yeah. Can you still hear me talking? Good. That's the most important thing, yeah. Sorry about that. There's something going on in my computer and I haven't figured it out yet what it is. It's normally like very reliable, but okay, that's what it is. So I found Feeding Your Demons many years ago, around maybe 15 years ago. And actually Feeding Your Demons, this very practice was what led me into investigating more into Buddhism, and turned me into a practitioner, a practicing Buddhist at the end, because I was so impressed by this practice as I was studying to become a therapist. Because I live and work in Munich as a therapist, even though I am Swedish. Yeah, that's a little bit information about me to start with. And I live here with my German husband and my 3 children. And so I discovered Feeding Your Demons in this workshop for therapists, and I was so deeply impressed by the effect that I could see in this other woman. I watched her being led through a practice, and I could see, and she also described a great difference before and after. So I was really, really moved, and I wanted to get to know it better, and that's what I also did. So, and I studied a lot, and Lama Tsultrim Allione, who is the founder or the developer of this practice, became my main teacher in Buddhism. And so many years have passed since then, and I eventually also became certified to myself to teach this practice. Yeah, so I'm certified to teach it in weekends, but also as a teacher of the so-called Kapala 1 retreat, so the Kapala 1 trainings. There are Kapala training 1, 2, 3, and so on. And these are all, well, a great part in these trainings is the Feeding Your Demons practice. Yeah, so that's kind of the main practice where we go into the our relative reality, and we look at what problems do we have, how do we prevent ourselves to actually feeling free and feeling happy. And so we work with these in the Kapala trainings, and we also, on the other hand, work with more of the absolute reality of just recognizing what we really are in so-called nature of mind practices. Some of you may have heard that as a term. It's about recognizing our own mind and the quality of our own mind as being completely free, completely open, completely lucid and transparent, and awake and present. Yeah, so I think for me these Kapala trainings are amazing, are an amazing combination of working with our shadows in the relative, which we are in which we are most of the time. Yeah, fighting with ourselves and with others, and fighting with our problems and so on. Fighting in the sense of struggling, but sometimes also really fighting. But then also the absolute, and of being actually able to liberate in the very moment. So if we could always do that, then we wouldn't even need Feeding Your Demons. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy to just say, okay, I'm really maybe worried right now, or I'm feeling very sad or whatever, and then just to say, well, actually, this is just an expression of my vast expanse of true nature. And if I just look into that, there is no problem anymore. Yeah, that's the way it actually is. Yeah, that's the way we view it in the Buddhist world. Yeah, but as I say, we sometimes also need a tool when we feel very, very occupied and very stuck in our own world and our own problems. Yeah. You're welcome to call in if you want to ask a question or, you know, comment or something. But otherwise I'll just keep on talking. So what I actually do want to do at the beginning is to awaken our motivation for this evening, which is what we very often do also at the beginning of everything we do is suggested, that we awaken the motivation. We do it at the beginning of every meditation, but also like now, just to kind of also investigate a little bit, what am I looking for right now? What's the maybe feeling that I want to achieve by being here, that I want to find? And if you want to, you can close your eyes and just feel into that question, like, what is my motivation to be here? And feel this motivation. Very often it's kind of a positive, a wish to feel better in some way, a wish to arrive someplace. And when we awaken the so-called Bodhicitta that I'm talking about now, it's kind of feeling that motivation, not just for yourselves, but to also wish that also others may feel like that. Maybe happy and free from confusion and so on. Okay. Thank you. So I will talk a bit about the practice of feeding your demons now. And to start with, for many people, the name can be quite awkward and funny, you know, feeding your demons. I experience people sometimes as a little bit anxious when they hear the name, you know, if they haven't really been in contact with that kind of thought of what is a demon. And so what I really want to say from the start is that a demon is nothing that comes from the outside. Yeah, it's not about like maybe the demons that we see in horror movies or something. It's another name for different, not different, but for difficult feelings that we may have, for states that prevent us from being present, or from different kind of problems. And they all come from within, from myself, from my subconscious and so on. So it's another word for our shadows. Some people may call them shadows or just problems. Yeah, that's what the demons are. So they come out of the word for Mara. If you know Mara, some people that maybe know Buddhism a bit more, the Buddha, when he was about to get enlightened, he had meetings with Mara who tried to prevent him to move on to become more and more enlightened. And Mara is described almost as something personified in these legends. But actually what it was describing is his own inner world, his own resistance, his own struggles and so on. Yeah, so that's what we call demons. And so a demon, like a demon, could be anything that I feel that prevents me from just being present in the moment, from just feeling free or calm and so on. It can be an insecurity, it can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be a feeling of loneliness, or it can also be something that I really long for, so I can't stop thinking about it or working inside with the thought of wanting it or wanting to be with this person. Or rather it can be go in this direction, things that I don't want, right? Also difficulties in conflicts with other people, but it's really important to be aware that when we talk about the demon, it's not the other person. The demon is still whatever this other person is triggering inside of me. Yeah, so even if I may sometimes want, to call my husband the problem, if he does something that I don't like, yeah, but that's just an easy way of seeing it. The truth is, my problem is whatever happens inside of me in these situations. My anger, my frustration, my feeling of loneliness, and so on. Yeah. So always when we work with feeding your demons, and even if it is, we're thinking about maybe a situation where we are in a conflict or have a difficulty with another person, what we're working is how it makes me feel. Yeah. What is alive in myself in this situation. So as you hear, it's definitely nothing that comes from the outside. It is an expression of our own inner world. And the problem that we have is that when we have these difficult feelings or states, mostly we are not really constructive. We don't really meet them with a constructive mind. Yeah, what we mostly do is that we start ignoring it. Maybe I'm trying to look away. I put it into a dark corner somewhere in my subconscious, and I try to hide it, or I maybe fight against it. What we very often do is that we maybe start off not feeling very good, maybe feeling insecure, for instance, in a situation. Then we start also criticizing ourselves for being insecure. Yeah, so we're making it even worse. I'm fighting with myself for feeling insecure and so on. Yeah, so we fight with our demons, we ignore them, or we start engaging very, very much. Maybe, I guess if you are similar to me, then we human beings can be very good at creating stories, and when we walk with this story about like, how could he say this to me, and next time I meet him I'm going to say this, or why am I not successful enough in this area, or whatever, and can't be blah 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 blah. Yeah, and all of these we can call demons. Yeah, it can also be fears of different kind. It can also be illness symptoms. Not that I'm saying that we can heal all illnesses with this work or this practice, but I mean, we even, if we have a pain, for instance, if I have a back pain, we all know who have had pain in our body, how much we can engage with the pain, or how difficult it is to actually relax when I'm in pain. Yeah, so it can actually be very, very helpful to do a demon work also with body symptoms. I had a neck problem for many, I think it was even weeks, and I was so stiff, and it was so awkward, and then I did a demon work, and a few days later I was thinking like, wasn't there something? But it's not there anymore. And they'll say, oh yeah, I had a stiff neck. I had a really, it was so bothering me before the demon work. But then actually I was able to let go. I was able to let go of the tension. Yeah. So if we're lucky, it can work very well. Also in those situations. Okay. And what Tsultrim Allione says about the demons, also Lama Tsultrim Allione, who is the kind of developer of feeding your demons, which I will talk a little bit more about in a second, what she says is, normally we empower our demons by believing they are real and strong in themselves and have the power to destroy us. As we fight against them, they even get stronger. But when we acknowledge them by discovering what they really need and nurture them, our demons release their hold, and we find that they actually do not have power over us. Yeah. What's your thought about this when you hear this? Maybe somebody wants to share what you're thinking so far. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Nice. Yeah, a little bit more free. Yeah. And actually, that's what Machig Labdrön, the founder, the great mother of this practice from the 11th century, what she says is that everything that prevents us from being free is a demon. Yeah? From feeling free. So we can work with all of that. And there's another quote that I always like sharing from one of the founders of the self-compassion practice, who is named Christopher Germer. Maybe some of you know about him. And he says, and it sounds so nice, that's why I like quoting it, what we resist persists, but what we feel, we can heal. And that goes for this practice too, I think, that really what we resist, it persists. It's good to know that we can't really do much by fighting our problems, right? We can rather just make them more strong and loud. But if we start feeling them and inviting them, as we really also do in the demon practice, then we can heal. Yeah. Okay. So what we do in the demon practice is exactly this. We invite our difficulties and our difficult feelings and states. We make it a lot easier for ourselves by personifying them. Yeah, we allow them to take a shape of a being. Yeah, and this being we can then also call the demon, right? The demon being, so that we can more easily go into dialogue with them. Yeah, we have kind of outsourced them. That's what we do in the practice, and you will also notice that we will change places, go from one place to the other as we practice. But after, when I lead you through, you will notice you can just follow my instructions. But what we do then is that we can even ask these problems in the shape of the being. What do you really need? And how will you feel when you get what you really need? Yeah. So we definitely stop fighting here, and we start rather being curious about what is this problem lacking? What does it need? And for those of you who know the self-compassion practice, it has a lot of similarities. Yeah. And we go even further. We can then also, when we know what this being needs, being as in the problem, we then also nourish it. We feed it with exactly the feeling that it is looking for, in a structured way that you will notice in the practice. And thus comes the name feeding your demons. Yeah? So we give them what they need. And they then even, and this is a magical part of the practice, they then even turn into an ally energy, a supporting energy for myself, who can really support me, who can be with me, who I can call whenever I need it, and so on. It may sound a bit strange, but actually it does work very, very well. Because it's all an expression of what comes from myself. Yeah? I take out my problem, I put it on the spot opposite to me. I ask it, hey, what's going on? What do you need? And how will you feel when you get what you really need? I give it what it needs in a very ritual-like way, which you will learn. And it turns into an ally, and it can even then give me the support that I need. So that's, I think, a very, very beautiful way to describe this practice. And Lama Tsultrim Allione, who developed it out of a traditional Buddhist practice called Chöd. And the Chöd practice is well known across most or maybe even all Buddhist schools, at least the ones of the so-called Vajrayana Buddhism. There are a lot of terms here, but you don't need to know them in order to know this practice. And you definitely also don't need to be a Buddhist or anything in order to use this practice for self-help. Yeah? But it can still be quite interesting to know where the practice comes from. So this Chöd practice, which was in the 11th century kind of developed, I don't know how to call it otherwise, or sorry, invented by a yogini called Machig Labdrön. And Machig Labdrön, a woman, which as such was very extraordinary, because as a woman she came very, very far as a Buddhist teacher, and this was in the 11th century. You can probably imagine medieval times in Tibet. At least I can imagine that. I don't think women had a very good position to become very, very respected teachers, but she did, because she seems to have been a very, very special woman with a high, what's it called? Well, a high developed recognition of the mind and so on. And there are some really interesting stories about Machig Labdrön and legends, and one of them is very, very connected to the Chöd practice and to the feeding your demons, where the legend tells that Machig Labdrön, as a very young woman, not even 20, was at this teaching. She was at her teacher's for very, very high teachings, and I was going to say it in English, but I've forgotten the name of it. So Ermächtigung is what you would say in German. But I can't find the word right now. Empowerment, thank you. Yeah, for empowerment. And during this empowerment, it is said that Machig Labdrön was so fulfilled and so moved and touched by really the true nature of herself and of all beings. So she then, all of a sudden, also in the legend, you may believe it as this is the truth, or this is what happened, or you may also just listen to it as a legend. Yeah, but it is said that she then was naked and kind of flew out of the room through the walls and everything, and sat down on a tree outside, because she was so like liberated in that moment. And she sat there naked in this tree, looking at a pond that was in front of her. And in this pond, it is said that there was a naga beings, and they are kind of water beings, quite terrifying, or they can be quite terrifying and scary. They can be quite threatening if you're not nice to them. So it is said that all people would take a big circle around this pond and not go closer because of this naga being that was living in the pond. But Machig Labdrön just remained, even though the naga being was very upset for getting a visit from a human being. It wasn't interested in the human beings and wanted to scare her away. But whatever the naga being tried in order to scare her away and to threaten her, she wasn't scared, because she was free. She was free from attachment. She was free from the ego clinging. She didn't even attach to her own body. So nothing could scare her. And she then said to the naga being, "It's okay. I see you want to threaten me. I see you even threaten to destroy me and so on. And I offer you instead. I offer you my body even as a body offering. Take it. I'm not afraid." And in this very moment, the naga being was then so moved by this strange kind of turn that he wasn't expecting, of course, and the generosity of her body offering, so that he said, "No, I won't destroy you. I won't harm you. Instead, I promise to always support and protect you and all your followers." So this is exactly what happened in this situation, in this legend, that it happened exactly what we talk about, or what happens in the feeding your demons, but also in the Chöd practice, that actually the demons they get what they need, and they get pacified and transform into protectors and into supporters, supporting beings. So this, I always call it, this was the first Chöd practice, right? Or this was the first feeding your demons, yeah? If we believe this story. There are many other stories also about Machig Labdrön, and there's also a lot of research about her life and so on, so that she lived seems to be quite sure. And of course, was she really naked, and so on? Did she really fly through the walls and whatever? But it's a nice symbolism, right? The nakedness really symbolizes her fearlessness. She didn't fear even the Naga beings. So, and Machig Labdrön is really a very, as I said, a very highly known and highly respected teacher still today. A lot of her practices are being practiced in different Buddhist Vajrayana schools. And it's quite interesting because she is the most known for the Chöd practice, for the giving and nourishing the demons. But what she really taught the most, the teachings that are written down from her, they are almost all about emptiness, the emptiness of phenomena and of ourselves, so the so-called twofold emptiness. And one even calls the Chöd practice cutting through. That's the name. The Chöd means cutting through. So what it really means is it cuts through the ego, yeah? And it can liberate us in that very moment when we work in this way of giving instead of fighting. And I think it's quite important here to at least say a few words about this so-called twofold emptiness, because it's really the base of everything. It's the base of the Chöd practice. It's also the base of any practice in Buddhism, and also the base of everything, I would even say, of every phenomena. And what it says is that there is nothing of persistence. There is nothing to hold on to. I think I maybe touched in on this before also. That actually, in our essence, we are free. We are completely open. There is nothing that we need to hold on to in this openness. We're speaking about the open awareness, nature of mind, and so on. But when we look around, when we look at all the things, all the phenomena, or even ourselves, in our relative world, what we see is something fixed, right? We say it's real. This is me. I'm real. I'm Lisa. Yes, of course, in a way I'm real, but am I really real in the way, in the fixated way that I see myself? That's what we question in this philosophy. Yeah. For instance, when I look at my table over there, which is made of wood, mostly we kind of have the idea that this is existing right now and it will always be a table. It will be like this forever. Yeah, as if somebody would have just beamed it down. There's a table in front of me and it will always stay a table. But if we start investigating this table more, if we look into the wood and all the pieces and maybe the screws and the glue and maybe the plastic parts and metal and so on, it's just different parts that have been put together and that are now acting as a table. Yeah. But before it was even just a little seed in the soil, then grew up to become a tree. And this tree was then chopped down and was worked on to become a table. And it will not stay a table forever, because if we fast forward, it will, or it is even now degrading. It is even now falling into its small pieces, without us, of course, noticing it in every moment. But one day it will be soil again. Yeah. And that's how Machig Labdrön keeps on in her teaching, keeps on describing what is this twofold emptiness. What are we really? Yeah. Talking about us as rather being a verb than a noun. Yeah. So also talking about the Tibetan word for phenomena, which is nang, N-A-N-G. I just find this very, very interesting. It's nang, yeah. And the word nang, phenomena, can be a noun, and it can also be spoken as a verb. Yeah. So instead of saying phenomena, I can say it's phenomening. Yeah. Or instead of saying table, I can say it's tabling. Yeah. Or instead of saying Lisa, I can say it's Lisaing at the moment. Yeah. At this very moment, yes. And in a few hours, when I'm out there talking to my family again, I'm Lisaing in another way, right? Because we are in a constant process. We are a verb. And all things, everything that we see is a verb, more a verb than a noun. And that makes things for me a lot more vivid and alive, and kind of helps me to touch in with actually this essence that we really are. And we talk more about this, for instance, in the Kapala trainings, because there, as I said, we go more into both of these paths of like the relative, working with feeding your demons, but also the absolute, looking into the absolute. And we have a wonderful meditation that's called the Prajna Paramita meditation in the Kapala 1 retreat. I see Paris also posting information about the one that we're having in Stockholm now in October. A wonderful meditation that's called the Prajna Paramita meditation that really also gives us a lot of teachings about exactly this, about what we really are. Yeah. So as I said, I think at the beginning that even though we could liberate like this, going into recognizing what we really are, our absolute state, mostly it's not that easy. Yeah. And that's why it's so good to have also something like feeding your demons, yeah, so that we can also, when we are in our relative state and we are struggling and we are efforting and we are feeling separate from the others, right, which makes us feel all sorts of difficult feelings. So we can then use this practice, and using the feeding your demons practice then at the end also takes us into this open state, because at the end we rest in what is there, in just open awareness. Yeah. Now I've talked a lot. But this is about what I wanted to say about feeding your demons. And I would love to hear your questions and thoughts before we then take a break, and then I will lead you through the practice. I would say the thing is, it's very, very interesting because this question comes up in so many different schools and so many different therapy interventions. And Lama Tsultrim also, even when she developed feeding your demons out of the Chöd practice, she was very inspired by the Gestalt therapy. Yeah. And I myself work as a Gestalt therapist. I'm trained as a Gestalt therapist. And so, but I'm sure we can find it in so many other schools and in so many other directions, because it speaks to our need. Like also, if we are looking at the nonviolent communication method, which I also really like working with a lot with my clients and with my couples that I work with, it has exactly this. What is your need, right? Because that's where we can get healing, if we realize what we are needing or what our parts of us are needing. We can then also, instead of fighting, as I said, we can try to give them, or to give ourselves, as when it comes to the self-compassion, we can give ourselves this feeling. And you probably know very well what happens then, right? So I don't, I would, yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. And I think you will notice what is a good rhythm for yourself. Yeah. Sometimes Lama Tsultrim, she can even say, do it once a day now with this very problem, right? and do it for a month or something. I've never been able to do that because I think it's very intense. And for me, if I've done a Feeding Your Demons work, I think it's a very good feeling to use that a few days to just feel, how is it now feeling? How is it when I go into contact with my ally being also that can support me? So, and then it gets quite organic for me that I realize, oh, but now I'm beginning to cramp up maybe with something else, or maybe with the same thing in another way. Let's do another one, right? So I wouldn't say you can do it too often, but I would be aware of myself, of like what is good for me, what's a good rhythm for me. Yeah, yeah. And we talk more about this in our weekends and in our Kapala trainings, that you can do it with the same issue over and over again. The thing is, the important is just that you will start over just from scratch again. So even if you say, okay, let's say I work with my headaches, right? The first time I work with them, I will see some kind of being appear in that step of the practice. And when I work with it again, because I realize, okay, I'm still having headaches, yeah, I start from zero again. So I'm still curious about all the steps from the beginning. It can be a completely different being that I see in front of me. It will give me other answers and so on. Yeah. Yes. So just as a translation now, because asked she said it's easier to ask the question in German. So the question is, how exactly do I need to know what the problem is, or how specifically do I need to kind of describe the problem before I start working? Was that a good translation, or how differentiated? Yeah, yeah. So I'll answer in English first. And if you want to hear it in German or some translation, then please let me know. Yeah. So this is quite an interesting question that also comes up a lot in our trainings and so on, because sometimes we just don't really know. Sometimes I can just be like, oh, you know, have some kind of feeling, but I can't really say what's going on. And I can even work with that. I can sit down and I can work with, and I can feel into like, how does my body feel when I feel like this, right? And where in my body, because these are questions that come in the practice. And where in your body do you feel your problem, and how does it look, and so on, right? So I don't really have to say this is about, I'm feeling because of my childhood and my mother and whatever, yeah. Um, uh, but of course, if I can describe it, I always like to try to find like some kind of answers of like, what is this? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I feeling empty? Or is there a worry? And so on. Or when did it appear? Was it when I said goodbye to my daughter this morning? Or I think it's good to try to get a little bit more into like trying to understand it also. But if you don't, you can work with it fine as it is. Yeah, because we feel it in our body. Thank you. Okay, does anyone else have something to share or to ask, or? Yes, I mean, we can trust it when we know how to use the practice, and very often people have difficulties trusting what they say or what they hear and so on at the beginning, because very often the question comes, am I just fantasizing this? Am I making this up? Yeah, or something like that. But when I could show you a little bit, like, so let's say we start on this side. That's what you're going to do afterwards when I lead you through the practice. Yeah, you will start on the one side. You will have either another chair or another cushion opposite to you as the second place. Yeah. So here I start with the practice. We do the breath, and I lead you through all of this, right? And here you decide what you want to work with and so on. And then here you also get the question, so in a situation like that, where you feel this, or where this problem is there, where do you feel it in your body? Maybe I feel it like here and it feels hard, or maybe it's like a stone and it's gray and it's kind of it's got edges and so on, right? You will know, you will be able to develop this when we do the practice. And then I also instruct you to kind of let all this energy move away to the cushion opposite to you. And there it then becomes a being. Yeah, here it turns into a being. So I ask this being then the questions. And believe me, mostly we do see a being. That's also sometimes a question, will I really see a being here? I'm not, if you've never done it, or if you kind of have the idea that I can't see things, I'm not a visual type. But it's not that much about really seeing something very clearly. It's more about like just knowing what is there. Like if I would ask you to describe an apple, if you would close your eyes and describe an apple, you would see an apple. Maybe not see like, oh, I see all the details, but you would see, it's a green apple, it's got this kind of thing on the top, and it's got maybe a few red spots, or however your apple is that you're seeing. Yeah. And that's enough, doesn't need to be more. And then when you change places on this side, which I also instruct you to do everything, on this side, then I will ask you to really become this being, to feel that you are now this being that you just saw in front of yourselves. And feeling into this being, let's fantasize that maybe I saw a hairy monkey with brown long fur and like looking very tiny and skinny and malnourished. Yeah. So I kind of turn into, I feel as if I would be this brown little malnourished monkey that's so skinny and got this kind of fur that doesn't look healthy and so on. And when I do that, I also get the question then, how do I feel as this being, right? And feeling into that mostly gives me some kind of an indication of what do I need. Yeah. So now when I feel into my idea of this brown, furry, malnourished monkey, I feel very like, I feel weak, and I feel there's some kind of an awkward feeling inside of me of like, oh, wanting to get out of my skin. Yeah. And then I will answer the question. Then it's quite easy to answer the question when I hear what do I want and what do I need and so on. But of course, this is just the first time you're doing this. So don't have too high expectations on yourself. But many people get very surprised how easy it is then to answer that question. Yeah? Was this now answering your question? Yeah, and we can always trust what comes. We also learn that with time, when we do the practice with time. At the beginning, it can be like, why did I just say that, or why did I think that? Don't worry, everything that you come up with, even if you say, I'm just fantasizing this right now, okay, fine, fantasize. It's fine, because also your fantasy comes out of your own imagination, out of your own subconscious. Yeah. So just go with whatever answer comes up first. Just choose it and do it a little bit playful today, and just see, okay, let's experiment with this practice and see what happens. Yeah. It is embodiment in the sense that we ask the question, like when you imagine that you are in a situation where you have this problem, yeah, whatever problem you're working with, then the question is, scan your body, like feel into your body, scan the body for the different areas and feel where in yourself do you feel it? Where does something change in your body? So that's, but it's not really, I don't think it's what you mean by definition of body work. Okay. Okay, are there any other questions before I would suggest that we take a break and then come back with curiosity and openness to try this practice out? Okay, it doesn't seem like it. Yeah, good. So let's take a break. Is 5 minutes enough? Or do you want some more? Enough. Okay, so let's meet for me it would be 8 past. And why don't you then, during the break, also consider like, what could I possibly work with afterwards? And the best thing would be to not take a really difficulty, right? Maybe take something small to begin with, right? It could be whatever kind of irritation. Maybe it's my bad morning mood, or maybe it's, you know, like just thinking a little bit too much about that next iPhone of mine or whatever. So try to think of something in the break that you want to work with. That's not too difficult. Maybe also set up another space for you so that you have two, so that I can then lead you through the practice. Okay, so see you at 8 past.